I specifically said freedom fighters because that's what the Palestinian citizens are, fighting for freedom every day. Well, I guess here's the thing. If you mean freedom fighters in the sense of the actual fighters, they're terrorists. Or if you mean freedom fighters and the citizens who voted for Hamas, they're also terrorists. So Mia Khalifa, whorish and retarded. I've struck gold, said no guy ever. There are some people out there who aren't just those celebrators of death, right? It's not just nameless faces. There's celebrities and politicians who are also out there pimping the Hamas message. So let's go first to Mia Khalifa. And I wasn't super familiar with her, but I know she is. She was a pornography actress.
I knew Wiz Khalifa, but only, from music.
So she put this out there. Can someone please tell me the freedom fighters in Palestine to flip their phones and film horizontal? I just want to make it clear that this statement in no way, shape, or form is enticing spread of violence. I specifically said freedom fighters because that's what the Palestinian citizens are, fighting for freedom every day. Well, I guess here's the thing. If you mean freedom fighters in the sense of the actual fighters, they're terrorists. Or if you mean freedom fighters and the citizens who voted for Hamas, they're also terrorists. So Mia Khalifa, whorish and retarded. I've struck gold, said no guy ever. I believe she was under the false impression that the Gaza Strip was perhaps a gentleman's club. That's what I understand, and maybe she was a little bit confused.
Oh, come on.
But there is, for people on audio, it's just either go back or you don't.
You have to.
Here is a slightly happy ending, though. She was immediately fired from her job as an ambassador for, I guess, a mushroom company. The CEO.
I thought this was a code for something else.
No, the CEO, Todd Shapiro.
I did.
Here's a surprise that Shapiro was upset about that.
A Shapiro?
Yeah.
No.
Once she put out that message about Hamas and she, ring, it's Shapiro. She had to go, ooh, that's not good.
This day's going to cost.
But
Am I getting a raise?
He sent this out publicly. He said, this is such a horrendous tweet, Mia. Consider yourself fired effective immediately. Simply disgusting, beyond disgusting. Please evolve and become a better human being. Lofty goals.
I don't think that's, by the way, she's a mushroom sales person?
I don't know. Mushroom. It's all about mushrooms nowadays.
I didn't know it was a thing, so I thought
Get
it was
in the game, Gerald.
But she did get fired from Playboy as well.
Right.
I don't know if you saw that. Like, there were, that happened, and I'm like, mushroom company's got to be a euphemism for something like
They should have made they should have had a spread with her in like a burqa, but, nothing underneath.
They did that. I mean, I don't know.
They wrote about it in the article.
Yeah, I heard about it, yeah.
And let's go to our favorites. You know what? Let's bring up that quote. Do we have the quote, Muhammad, right? The last words, the dying words from Hadith. Just, again, this is like, hey, his last call is, let's bring it up there, Matt, because I don't have it in front of me.
Do it now. Do it. All right, so expel the Jews of the Hijaz and from the Arabian Peninsula and know that the most evil of people are those who took the graves of their prophets as places of worship.
There you go.
Expel the Jews.
Yeah.
The graves of their
a little bit different from like Jesus.
Don't clip that.
Yeah, love.
Don't. I was being Muhammad.
Jesus is like, love one another.
Fudge.
I mean, I don't know. His last words might have been something, that wasn't documented, where he's just like, yeah, I know. You can put your finger through it. All right, I'll see you in a little bit. But
I think Jesus' last words was BRB.
Yeah, BRB. Yes, exactly. He's like, the Jews won't believe it. That's a whole other thing. I know I'm one of them, but it'll sort itself out.
Don't worry, I'll give him another chance.
Yeah. So I say that because Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib would probably be amongst those 198 million. Now, why do I say that? There's some kind of a check or balance in that they can't just come out and say, hey, we celebrate the death. This is what these protests are. Let's be clear. They're not protests. They are death celebrations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dia de la Muerte with terrorists.
Let me remind you, if you forgot what they were celebrating. So they're the concert goers running and screaming, being shot. Random people, like they're going door to door, killing kids in front of parents and then kidnapping those parents and taking them into Gaza. I'm saying what Israel has put out right now has happened. Burning people alive in their homes because they couldn't get in to actually get them out. And one of the most frightening, terrifying things is finding children's heads removed from their bodies in these homes.
Yeah.
That's what these people are out in the streets cheering for. That's what they think justice is.
And there's a big difference between a bomb or a missile being fired at a military base, and that is usually, by the way, hidden in a grade school. And it's a tragedy, absolutely, right? A child is dead, but a child is dead from a missile that was aimed at a military base, and a child's head personally separated by human hands.
Because
in the
they're
hundreds.
Jewish. Yeah.
Celebrate.
Because they're Jewish. That's
Just
what.
because.
Just to be clear, that is what Hamas does.
Yeah.
That is what they. We're not talking about some long-range missile. They show up, and they saw the heads off children.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not even always necessarily a clean cut. I advise you to not go and do the research because there are videos out there.
It's horrifying.
Researchers came out and said 40 babies found dead.
Yep. 40. Those are freedom fighters?
And then these celebrations, and that brings us to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And by the way, Ilhan Omar banged and married her brother. Just look up the marriage certificate.
Gross.
Omar, this was her tweet, I guess, on X. She said, This is Omar. Yeah. This is collective punishment, a war crime, and the U.S. should oppose any violations of international law if we support a rules-based international order. Because she sounds like Rafiki. Hey, hold on a second. Doesn't the war crime clause go out the window when they decapitate your children by design? I don't know. I mean, 2 war crimes from Hamas, right? Because they fired from civilian areas into civilian areas. My policy on that at that point is screw Hugh and by any means necessary to take out Hamas. Period. Let's go to Tlaib from my former home state. Lengthy Instagram statement. She, of course, placed the blame on Israel. Right. The path to that future must include lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, and dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that can lead to resistance. Maybe she's talking about Egypt? Oh, no, that's right, just the Jews. As long as our country provides billions in unconditional funding to support the apartheid government, this heartbreaking cycle of violence will continue. In other words, she's starting off with point of fact. Unless Israel gives more land repeatedly, as they have already done, we can all assume that the violence will continue. Really? Would the violence continue if Hamas put down their arms? Just to be clear, Israel left Gaza in 2005. And then they started some more shit up again and started launching missiles, and they said, well, you don't get that anymore. It's kind of like with my son. I give him a toy, and if he hits his sister with it, I go, well, you can't play with that toy anymore. Why? Because I gave it to you, and you hit your sister with it. Now you get no toy. You get no Gaza.
I know, right? The minute that, and by the way, Gaza was saying, leave, let us govern ourselves. So Israel's like, okay, fine, we're going to leave. We're going to let you guys govern yourselves because we're apparently bad. Immediately they elected Hamas.
Yep.
Let me just ask you, we go from president to president, administration to administration, Congress to Congress, and we go, is life better? Is your life better than 2005? I would wager that it's not, because you guys have said that this is an open air prison of your own making. And and of your Muslim brothers' making, because they won't let you in their country either.
Yeah.
Who should you really be mad at right now?
You know,
Israel?
The only Muslims who aren't in open air prisons? Muslims who live in Israel.
Right.
That's one thing that you often forget about, by the way.
Lots of them, by the way. Lots of Arab Muslims that live peacefully in Israel, and Israel's like, okay with it, just as long as you're not going to shoot up or blow up, we're fine.
Yep. And by the way, here's the outside of Tlaib's Washington office. If we just bring, Notice any? I don't know if you notice any contradictions. I would love to see her grab that rainbow flag and run down to Hamas front lines like the Patriots.
Do it.
Patriot with hold! Like. So did you want to kill? You want to kill her first?
We need tall buildings, apparently.
I'm so confused. She has the traditional headdress, but the flag. What do we do?
I don't know.
How's she so fat?
Was there even an American flag there?
Nope.
That's the point. No stars and/or stripes right there.
Insane.
Now, maybe there were on the other side.
Maybe there were.
Maybe.
I don't think so.
It's just so funny that she has the LGBTQ flag and Palestine there because they would burn her alive.
Drag her behind a truck.
Can we send her back?
I think
Ilhan
it's
back.
only fair that they get like a little cultural enrichment, like a foreign exchange program.
Yeah, they should.
Except
know
we take
their
nothing
own country.
in exchange. We don't need anything in exchange. This is a free gift. And she goes there with that flag and stays away from tall buildings.
Yeah, like a pen pal program. Only we make her the pen pal from there. We send her over, and now you get to be our pen pal. By the way, we've just so you know, we've shipped all of your rainbow, flags, all of your rainbow paraphernalia, and it will arrive very publicly wrapped so that everyone knows exactly.
Hamas will know exactly.
They will know exactly where to find you.
package at the same time, and we hope for the best.
Yes. Let's read this from Harvard, the beacon of higher education. Again, you see the celebrations of death in the streets, and you can say, oh, it's just a small amount of people. 198 million Muslims across the world who support violence, sometimes against civilians. Now we have Harvard, a joint statement by 35 groups. We, the undersigned student organizations, hold the Israeli regime entirely responsible for all unfolding violence.
All
and entirely responsible. Hey, look, how about maybe like if you want to say some, right? Like I'm just
all of it.
Entirely all of it?
At least try to hide your anti-Semitism.
And that's not the worst part. Sure, it's really dumb. I mean, even your lawyers will tell you to couch your words. Like, we'll try and avoid words like always and all and never because it gives them just a little bit of leeway. And I think in this case, 700 people and 40 babies who are dead and decapitated, might stand to reason that someone might have a counter argument to any and all violence. But here's the crazy part. I've always said it's not just that people say this. When they say it so boldly and loudly that they don't actually even take into consideration the remote possibility of accountability, there has been no condemnation or backlash from the Harvard administration. None whatsoever. At 11:22 Eastern. What's the date today? We're the 16th?
The 10th.
The 10th.
You're an entire week off.
I'm an entire week off.
None so far. Bring
None
that back
so
up
far.
Really quickly, bring that up. So this is Lawrence Summers, a former Harvard president, longtime Washington economic policy hand. Nothing has happened so far, and I believe he actually took to X to excoriate Harvard for saying this and saying, like, you can't, you have to distance yourself from people like this who say Israel is completely to blame. By the way, if Israel goes in and kills children, I feel the same way about that.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's not like Israel can do no wrong. They do plenty of wrong. We're just saying when people come in and start shooting up concerts and decapitating babies, you put all that aside and go, those are the bad guys. We're going after them.
Yep.
Sorry. That just is what it is. You can talk about the rest of this stuff later on once the beheading of babies and killing of concert goers is done with.
Yeah. Right. And let's go to the media as well. And by the way, the media has it started off where they had to say our hearts are with Israel and then just give it a little bit of time. New York Times. Here's a headline there. Gaza has suffered under 16-year blockade. Why the blockade? Forbes, and this was deleted, by the way, where they actually wrote, Hamas threatens to execute Israeli civilian hostages for unprompted attack on Gaza. Look, if you want to say, and you want to go all the way back to the Old Testament and say, okay, it was their land, fine. But to say unprompted attack on Gaza, again, it's not just that someone wrote this at Forbes, it's that they think so little of you, the American public, you watching, listening, not you, I guess, their reader on average, that they think the reader's going to go, yeah, completely unprompted attack on Gaza. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Publish that.
Washington Post, their global opinions editor, Karen Ataya, liked this tweet. What did y'all think decolonization meant? Vibes, papers, essays, losers. These same people then, so let me ask you this. Does that mean that you want Native Americans to massacre women and children here because you believe that we've colonized it?
Exactly.
And also, can you hold that position while also bitching about the fact that more effective civilizations came in and populated a continent? Comment below. How do you hold those two positions? Oh, okay, you know what? All right, you want to do that? You want to do, if you are saying that being anti-colonialist, what did you think it was going to be? It means violence. Great. So then, does that mean that us, the colonialists, we can use the same violence too? Because we have more guns. We're the people of AR-15s, just to be clear.
Yeah, we won
not
once.
you.
We won once. We'll do it again.
The coverage is so bad that this guy, Greenblatt, of the ADL, who we
don't like this guy.
We don't like this guy. This guy's an absolute wiener.
But
we use the ADL for the hate symbol or not game because they're so absurd.
They're idiots.
Even for him, this is too far of a bridge for him to cross.
I'll be honest, I am angry. I am angry with the world that allowed the dehumanization of Israelis and sanitized the terrorism of Hamas. I must say, I love this show and I love this network.
We know.
But I've got to ask, who is writing the scripts? Hamas, the people who did this, they are not fighters, Jonathan. They are not militants. And I'm looking right at the camera. They are terrorists. It is a barbarian who rapes and brutalizes women, who kills children in front of their parents.
So just think of the time bomb, the ticking time bomb we've created here in the United States. We have an open border. We don't know who's coming in. We have a media. We have higher education establishments who go out there and support terrorist sympathizers, unfettered, completely. And at the same time, these are all the mistakes that we've made. 198 million Muslims, self-professed Muslims in the world today who support violence against civilians. If we're 198,000, I'd be concerned. 1.9 million, I'm like, maybe we're getting to 19 million. I'd say, okay, we have to do 198 million support sometimes violence against civilians. Over 50 million support often violence against civilians. Sure, not all Muslims. I get it. It's not even a majority of Muslims across the globe. But it's too much. And it's certainly too much when we can't keep track of the people who support violence against our civilians coming into this country. Now, let's also go back, because we see these celebrations of death. Do you remember when one French Muslim was killed in a traffic stop? The entire country descended into riots at the flip side. And so hold on a second. One person is killed in the tragedy. You start celebrations and parties of death. When your side, terrorists, kill hundreds of innocent women and children, you then start parties of death and celebrations of death. Where's the life in any of it? This is something a lot of people miss when we talked about Dr. Ben Carson. At one point, he caught all this flack where he said, actually, I believe that Sharia law is completely incompatible with it's completely incompatible with the Constitution. The only reason that guy didn't make it for this, he's
Whispers,
like audio ambient.
Yeah.
I listen to his audio books every night. But he said it's completely incompatible with the Constitution. Why? Because it's a prescription of laws, Sharia law, which, by the way, exists in one capacity or another in every major Islamic nation in the world. And these laws, of course, always violate basic rights of women, always violate basic rights of people who are gay, minorities. They're not talking about systemic discrimination. They don't care. It's based on systemic discrimination. And based on systemic discrimination, not only on race, but on your faith. Do you know what dimitude is? Do you know what that is? Do you know what the poll tax is? Do you know what the curfew is if you're not a Muslim under Sharia law? Of course it is incompatible with the Constitution. And before we even get to the 198 million people who support sometimes death for civilians, I bet you that number's a lot higher as far as Muslims who, if they had their way, would support you paying a poll tax as a Christian or a Jew, or a curfew, or being limited in your property rights, or where you can travel. That is all a part of Sharia law and is completely incompatible with the Constitution. But the constitutional scholars at Harvard are not going to tell you about that. This is genocide, to be clear. People, you know what's not genocide? What happened with the Native Americans here. There was a lot of stuff happening, by the way, the white settlers, and of course, even you can go to the conquistadors. I am not defending them full stop. We just had Indigenous Peoples Day, or was it yesterday?
Columbus Day.
Was Columbus Day yesterday?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if it was a different day. It was also Canadian Thanksgiving, but nobody cares. But just to be clear, that's not genocide. If it were genocide, Johnny Depp wouldn't be 1/18th Comanche.
There would be no Comanche.
We wouldn't have more Native Americans today than ever in history. There were bloody battles, and there were some underhanded tactics used on both sides. Absolutely. But it wasn't proactive genocide, and that it was never a matter of, and this is how you know the left perverts. They accuse others of doing exactly what it is that they do or they support. They accuse the Founding Fathers, who, by the way, or Pilgrims, they accuse conservatives who are proud of their country of supporting genocide, as though it was a matter of policy to go forward and wipe out any last redskin. But that was never a policy. The policy was actually assimilation, intermarry, because we have people here who are very industrious, and we wanted to be a part of them. I don't know if you know this. When you talk about the conquistadors, you know how many came over? About 500. You know how many natives there were? Hundreds of thousands. You know how they were taken up? Was because half of them had been in, and by the way, I don't know if you know this about the Mayans, the Incas, right, the Aztecs. They had giant caves filled with gold. How do you think they got that gold? You get them gold, you are enslaved, or you no longer live. So they said, we're going to take our chances with the guys in the funny metal hats. That wasn't genocide. It required enough natives to take out other natives because they were tired of living under slavery. So I say this because they'll try and teach your kids that America is based upon genocide, when actual genocide today, and by that I mean the prescribed policy of the extermination and or eradication, which is almost redundant, of all Jews. In other words, Hamas, Hezbollah, their goal is not complete until there is not one Jew or Christian left, period. That is actual genocide. That is not a one-sided war. That is genocide. When that is actually happening, Harvard, media, these people are quiet. 198 million. Interpret the verse. When then the rocks and tree will call, O Muslim, O servant of God, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him. It is of Jew trees. And Muhammad's last words, calling for the death of Christians. We tried to warn you about this, Gerald and I, close to a decade ago.
Not Muhammad. What about salvation and forgiveness? How about that? Oh, anything now, Muhammad. What shall I say of you?
How do you feel about the Jews? By the way, I'm sorry that you need a bodyguard.
I do.
I think that's 8 years old.
I think it's more.
We made the references publicly available back then. We make them available now. You comment. You consider this genocide? Which one is more genocide-y if we're going to go super Is it the Native American thing? Or is it the Native American bullshit story you've been told? Or is it Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian regime? I think that when they say, hey, we actually want to exterminate all Jews, period, I think that would qualify. And by the way, the only reason we're allowed to discuss this, I have no idea how many times they've had to hit the YouTube dump button today. I'm sorry. We can do this because of your support. Notice no sponsors to us in the show today. LouderWithCrowder.com/Mug Club. Join up. $89 annually. You get this wonderful hand-etched mug. It's the only way to get it. You get Nick DiPaolo every day. You get the Hodge Twins, their weekly show, Brian Callen. You get an additional hour of show. Today, I guess we went late. Sorry. Hope you guys are okay with it.
Okay.
Another probably 40 minutes today. Alex Jones on Friday. So much more. But it's the only way that we're able to talk about this. Hey, if we worked for the New York Times, we wouldn't be able to. And by the way, if we worked for a lot of conservative outlets, we wouldn't have been able to say the things that we said yesterday regarding the funding of Israel and the funding of wars in the Middle East, the more libertarian approach. It's entirely because of viewers like you, Mug Club, so we appreciate it.
Watch Louder with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.